This conference will now be recorded.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce Doreen, and we've been trying to have this speaker series conversation with her for a couple times now, and it's finally happening, so we're really excited. Doreen is a professional teacher of special education in early childhood in rural Pennsylvania. Prior to that, she spent most of her career in the international arena working on donor relations, grant making, education, child health, and defending the human rights, prisoners, and refugees of other forced immigrants. She worked with the United Nations, U.S. large foundations and corporations, universities. Even today, thinking with a global perspective, Doreen's teaching. She enjoys sharing with her students childhood memories of growing up in Uganda, traveling the world, and meeting people from different walks of life. Doreen has traveled to every continent except Antarctica. Who would? Besides Uganda and the United States, she's lived and studied in Austria, Belgium, Brazil, Canada, England, France, Germany, Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, Norway, Scotland, Senegal, South Africa, Sweden, Switzerland, Tanzania, Thailand, the Gambia, and the Netherlands. So without further ado, and she's going to explain a lot more, Doreen, thank you for so much for coming in. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so very excited because, for one, I hold a special place with Massachusetts. I did my grad school in Massachusetts. I went to the Plato School, at Tufts University. So I was in that area for a while, for an exciting education enclave. And so, so I had to support the Red Sox, of course. What do you do? You have to, and you have to be, you go Pats. Yep. And then I've run the Boston Marathon. So there are so many exciting memories of Massachusetts there. So any runners, I'm not I don't understand American football very much, but I do my best to go with the flow.
That's right.
So I thought, and thank you for that introduction. And I thought I would tell you a bit about myself. So sure. Where I all started in Uganda. And then I can also tell you about the work that I have done. And I thought I would also just close it up by encouraging the Scouts how they can be citizens of the world. That's how I term it, because that's how I see myself. I see myself as a citizen of the world. I prepared a presentation, which I hope really works out. I'm going to try and share my window.
I'm going to make you a presenter. Give it 1 second.
Okay.
Oh, you can do it now.
All right, great. So this from here. Share the screen. So we'll go. So let's stay here. So my presentation, as I said, it's going to be about how to being a citizen of the world, and that's how I define myself based on my work, based on places that I have been, and just based on my interest in an approach to the world. Kids is my passion right now. I'm a mother. I have an 11-year-old. I forgot to mention that. That's very important. Who is a Boy Scout as well, and he's in he's a second class. He's just waiting to get to first class with his swimming badge, but because of the coronavirus and stuff, we haven't really been able to get anywhere to the waters, so that hasn't happened. So my journey, this is about me. I say I was born in Kampala, Uganda, and I can show a little bit about the map. It is known as the Pearl of Africa because it's for its green. Winston Churchill named it as the Pearl of Africa, and it's located within East Africa. I am from a family of 15. Yes, true story. Wow. Yeah, and everybody went to school. Everybody who wanted to go to school went to school. So that was the job for my parents to do, make sure. This Uganda is in East Africa, as you can see. I don't know if you can see that, but above here we have Sudan, which is to the north, and then Kenya is to the east. Tanzania is south down here, and then there's Rwanda to the southwest, and then the Democratic Republic of Congo. So Uganda is one of those landlocked countries because it's really surrounded by other land masses and not the water, as you can see. And here is some basic information as well. So I mentioned the capital, that's where I was born. It's in central Uganda. And the population, I just compared it. I said it's higher than California because California has the highest population in the US. So actually Uganda has a higher one, 42.72 million. Its size is larger than Utah, but smaller than Minnesota. So that's where it is, in between. And then, like you got, like the United States, we're a former British colony, and we got our independence on October 9th, 1962. If you see the shirt I'm wearing, these are the colors, and I'll show you the colors of the Ugandan flag. So this is the Ugandan jersey. Soccer is the biggest sport in the country. So somehow, you know, that's our jersey. When you wear a jersey here, that's what you wear. All right, so, and these are a couple of pictures. So I did my first degree in Uganda at Makerere University. The one on the top, that's Makerere University. It's a big one. It is actually a true story. Like, we used to be called the Harvard of Africa because of its prestige. It's where most scholars, even from, you know, Europe and North America, but from within the continent, most of the intellectuals came to study at Makerere. So many presidents, African presidents were trained there, African politicians, African academics were trained at the university. And then below here is the parliament. It's like the Senate, the US Congress, the House of Representatives, if you think, but this is actually a Senate because parliament are the ones who make laws. We don't necessarily have governors sitting in one building, but so that it's not big enough for them anymore. There are too many, and so many more want to be politicians. All right. So here is also some other facts about Uganda. So this is the Ugandan flag at the top. It has 3 colors, black, yellow, red, in 2 bars. The black represents the peoples of Africa, basically. The yellow is the sunshine, and the red is the blood that unites the people of Africa, as it is. At the bottom here is the currency. If you can see the Ugandan currency, I'm sorry, it went away. So one US dollar is equivalent to 3,720 true fact Ugandan shillings. So you can have a full meal with just $1 in Uganda if you want. And you can have 50,000, 20,000, 10,000, yes, in your pocket, and you walk around with it. And if you start quantifying it in US dollars, it might not make a lot of sense, but for many people, especially based on lifestyles, but also incomes earned, 50,000 is a lot of money. 10,000 is a lot of money for so many people. So that's why it is very colorful money. I kind of miss that colorful money because then you really know what you're carrying. They're not all green. You're like, okay, yeah. I'll take this.
Quick to remember. So, yeah.
This is this is like this. I think it's like the seal here, but this is it's called the coat of arms. It has 2 animals, the one animal and a bird. That's our national bird called the crested crane. So if you see it, you can't kill it. You can't. Yeah, it's against the law to kill any of these animals. The Ugandan kob, obviously, the Ugandan kob is facing extinction, but it's the one where you see it to the left. Then the shield, we have spears, which is you defend the country, call to arms, you defend the country. Uganda does not have the right to, people don't have the right to bear arms like in the United States. So that's not a right you have. It's for only soldiers and the military can have guns. At the top is Lake Victoria. It's the biggest lake in Africa. I think it might be the 2nd largest in the world. I have to remember my facts. It is also shared between the main East African countries, Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. And then you have the sun, which is really the sun. We are a very sunny country. So the sun is part of it. In the black background, which is the black people of Africa. The drum, where the formation of Uganda comes from the central region, which is called Buganda. This is, even my son sometimes feels like he's explaining too much. Because Uganda gets its name from the central region where the British settled, called Buganda. And it used to be a kingdom. It's still a kingdom, so it's one of the kingdoms. The people of Buganda speak a language called Lwanga, And so from there, the British decided they were so lazy they couldn't come up with a name, so they just took up the B and then said, okay, now it's Uganda, right? So the drum was always used to call people, if you call to action, if there's civic duty, that's what the drum symbolizes, but also, just entertainment. At the bottom is the River Nile, which flows, the source of the Nile is in Uganda, and it flows up to Sudan, then Ethiopia and Egypt. Then that's our motto for God and my country. The bottom has the greenery because Uganda is a very green country. And then you have two crops at the bottom. These used to be the main cash crops, coffee to the left and then cotton to the right. So again, as you can see, it's all right. So this is about Uganda. So I said maybe I could tell you just a little bit about Ugandans in the US. Where are they located? So majority are in California, in the Bay Area, in San Diego and LA. You have Ugandans in Texas. You have many in Atlanta. Actually, I have my sister and my brother live in Atlanta. And then you have some Ugandans in the Baltimore, Washington, D.C. area. Then Waltham, Massachusetts. That's a big, big enclave of Uganda. If you want to eat Ugandan food, you want to taste, you want to find Ugandan culture, that's where you go. So I miss it so much because I live in rural Pennsylvania where literally I've had this one Ugandan, but I've never seen. So I had Ugandan food and I could speak Luganda all the time with anyone in Waltham. And then there's some in Chicago and then Minneapolis, St. Paul. So that's where they are. Now, if you want to visit the Uganda, obviously you need to go to the Ugandan. You can go to the Ugandan embassy, but you can also send your passport because you need a visa. You need permission in your passport, like a stamp in your passport to go to Uganda. So this is the building. It's in Washington, D.C. It's really within the embassy area as well, like most of the other embassies, the foreign missions that represent countries in the United States. And then we also have another important building. It's a Ugandan house. This is a building that was purchased and it belongs to Uganda in 1978, I guess, when Idi Amin was still president. So it's right by the United Nations, and the Ugandan representatives to the United Nations sit there. So those are two places of interest. And again, as our flag is right there represented. Okay, and then this part is, so what do I do? As I said, I'm a teacher. I teach special education and early childhood. I love that so much. I think I had a different career, definitely, but I think when I moved to Pennsylvania, after my son and I resettled back to the US after 4 years or so, I was kind of taking care of my son. So I needed to find something that, for me, I like to do. It also stimulates me. And, it is teaching me how to teach my son because, as I said, I had my formative education in Uganda, so I didn't know so much. So I started substitute teaching. And then that's how I ended up through substitute teaching. I really fell in love with teaching kids. I learned a lot from the classrooms and the classroom teachers, like especially with special ed. So I went to East Stroudsburg University, where I live in Northeast Pennsylvania, and I just completed a degree in special ed and early childhood. But I've been a substitute teacher in my school district for about 7 years now, I think, or 6, about then. But prior to that, so I did a lot of work with refugees, right? For even studying in Uganda and prisoners. And I founded a prisons organization when I was still a student to go to prisons, interview inmates. There's a lot of problem with people getting legal aid, like getting their cases to court. That's what it means. So it's hard for people. People don't have money. Maybe their relatives don't even know where they are. Sometimes people are just picked up on the streets and they don't know where they are. So it's so hard. Many cases you have to believe this, but sometimes people are just picked up because they are sitting around, they say idly, and they're picked up and put in jail. Or some for frivolous cases like they stole a chicken, like cases that could be a fine or something. So there are many people languishing. There are people languishing in as well for what you consider felonies as well, like capital cases, that we call them capital cases, maybe murder. But they also still have a right to be heard. They have a right to go to, for their cases to be heard. So they can have a sentence or not, So I did a lot of work with that. That's what led me into refugees, because then I realized they're actually refugees that I just picked up because they crossed into Uganda to seek asylum. And with international law, which is really a big thing kids will learn as they grow up, but believe me, it actually starts from wherever you are at that stage, it just builds up. Just knowing that the laws internationally, there's a law that says if somebody's afraid of their life in the country they live, and they have a well-founded fear, maybe because of their race, religion, political group, or social, social group, or their opinions, or maybe even special cases like people fleeing female genital mutilation, things like that. Women, might be fleeing really aggravated domestic abuse, and their countries cannot protect them. So if somebody flees into the country and is seeking asylum, they should be given a chance to. They should not just be locked up. But what happens at the borders, and where people at the borders in Uganda, there were so many cases of refugees that's being picked up because they're on the streets and they didn't know what to do themselves as well. So I started doing a lot of work with refugees, trying to find legal aid to them, trying to get them for their cases to be documented. And then the collaboration with the UNHCR started. The UNHCR is the UN, United Nations Refugee Agency, which is responsible for protecting the rights of refugees from around the world. Uganda had so many. Right now, the refugee numbers are going down, but by then they had so many coming from wars in Congo. There were wars in Ethiopia, in Somalia, in Sudan. So all those countries had many refugees coming into Uganda. So after Uganda, I left and worked in South Africa, again with refugees and the UN. And then I came to Washington, DC. But since I've been here after that, I've worked with refugees again in Atlanta, but this is now resettlement, those who come into the United States, because the US government admits some people. The system is now changing. There's been a slowdown on this, but the US government really used to have the most generous refugee resettlement program, not resettling the most number of refugees, but in terms of a systematic program. They had a really good one in all of the industrialized countries, letting in people, getting a number of people, and also not necessarily taking people who are professionals, but rescuing those who might be from villages and their villages were burned down or they were being killed because of their ethnicity or anything like that. So a lot of them will come here with no education whatsoever, and helping them navigate the culture, and I mean, as somebody who had worked with refugees, but also I had an education background, it was that culture connection to help them transition. And I had experience being an immigrant to this country anyway. I've also worked with universities in Uganda. My main university, I showed you, Makerere. I worked there. I've worked in universities in New York, in New York University with Tufts. I did work there. Here where I went to school, so a couple of them. So that's something else. Like, I think a lot of the work that I also do has a scholarly element to it, because I like writing. I like engaging with people. I like research. I think we learn a lot from just listening to different people's ideas, whether we agree with them or not. It's good. It builds you up and it allows you to have an open mind, which is something that's really a good quality if you're going to do to be a global citizen. And then several NGOs, like Chuck said, some of them that are donors that are funding, that do a lot of funding for higher education in Africa or child health in different countries. But mine was a lot to do with Africa. That's my big interest. And I've been very active in our Boy Scouts here as an adult leader, as an assistant den leader. When my son was a Cub Scout, I volunteered every summer for a week to be a den leader, annual camp. And also before my son left Cub Scout, I think it was 2018, I was the popcorn colonel for by the park. And I was able to raise close to $20,000 for the park. Like, they've never done it before. That was the first time ever. So I mean, anything. I enjoy charitable work. I think my whole career was built on volunteering. And if we can get money, I think we were able to buy a pine wood derby rack because we used to borrow from another troop. kids were able to actually get, because our park wasn't giving out free neckerchiefs and stuff. We've got free neckerchiefs, we've got subsidized money to go to summer camp. We got a new computer. It was I was pleased with myself too, but I think I was just pleased at how much people were able to come and participate online, show and sell, show and deliver. We did. My son alone raised about 2,500.
Wow.
I mean, he had to. How can he not? Somehow he has to be able to say, look, your mom is putting all the energy. You come out too. So yeah, it was a really good way to say goodbye to the park before we moved on to the troop. In Troop 85, I'm on the committee, but so that's why I've already talked about the UN. I think I was gonna tell you this is the UNHCR that responds to global refugee emergencies. And most of these, I already said, people who have, different, maybe their racial, religious, nationality, membership of a particular social group, you have to have a well-founded fear. And I think this is something good to raise, because sometimes refugees people have misinformation about them. They're people who leave their country because economically they want to do better. I mean, some of us came here because we had jobs with the UN. Some of us came here because we really wanted to find another job. You were not finding a good job in your country. Some of us came here for school, but there are those who don't have a choice and they have to leave their country because they are not safe in their country. And they have to be unable and willing. So that's what the UN does, make sure that maybe they can find them another country if they can't even, even within the country they escaped to, they cannot live there. And that was a big thing for Uganda, because some refugees used to come from Rwanda and Sudan, but some of them, their governments used to hunt them down. So then in that case, the UN has to find them what they call a safe third country of asylum, where they can go to. I know many of the scouts, when they grow up, they might find themselves in places doing this kind of work. It's fun. It might sound like it's very, risky and you don't want to leave your family. I think it exposes you to the world. You get to enjoy doing lots of things. All right, so that's my career, I said. And finally, I think this is so among the things I like to do. So my son has a business. It's called Super Carrot Comics. He started, I think, in 3rd grade. He likes making comic books. So he does write comic books and he sells them. Usually we go to the streets and sell them. And this was at our troop community day. So they were raising money. So he bought a table there and he was trying to make to sell his business. So I support him. I love it. I support him. And that's me there in the Boston Marathon. Very, very tough to finish, but it's the best in the world. If you're a runner, if you like running, that's an elite one. It's, it's top one. If you ever get a chance to do it, go for it. And then these are snapshots of Uganda. So I figured I could show you, what else can you see? Something. The drying fish around the Lake Victoria. Fish was a staple when I was growing up, a lot of it. And this is the downtown. So if you went to downtown Kampala, you're most likely to see something like this. I know lately, things are changing a lot. There's a new mayor in town and wants to bring some kind of order to the city. But I mean, like cities with a lot of population, you think of Delhi, India and stuff, you will find something like this in other places. Yeah, it's not New York in terms of the building, but just that movement, the commotion of life. Yeah. And then this one to the left, the picture to the left, these are the cultural wonders I wanted to share with you. So the picture to the left is that burial site. It's called the Kasubi Tombs, where the Kabaka, who's the king of Buganda, I told you about that region where the country gets its name, they used to be buried here. So the kings, there hadn't been a king for a while, because after in the 80s, the new president abolished kingdoms completely. And so the king was forced into exile. In 1986, and this is another fun fact, or maybe a sad fact, but the current president of Uganda has been in power since 1986. You have to realize I have a child now. In 1986, I was a child. So he has been in power since then. That's how long, if you don't control, if you don't have systems that can let people really stop wanting, to be presidents, they can be a president forever. And he's actually been elected each time, but the means in which he's been elected, it's a whole story I can always tell you about. He's been in power for more than 30 years. So one of the things he did, though, for people is to bring back the kingdoms, because the kingdoms were a big part of people's culture and sense of belongings. They're still a president, but they do mobilize people. They help communicate the central message to the people as well. These cows, I don't know how many people have cows that look like this, but these are very special. It's from Western Uganda. They're called Longhorn Ankole cows. The Western Uganda is very well known for their cows. They love their cows. They love their milk. I am from the central region, so we don't really have cows. So I didn't even grow up drinking milk like that. We bought milk, but it wasn't a staple. Yeah, they drink milk a lot. And yeah. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. All right. So the last part is, how can you as a scout be a global citizen? And I've thought of things that I've seen Americans do abroad. Even before I came to this country, I met Peace Corps volunteers. Peace Corps Americans, usually they finish college. Like back in the days, they didn't really have to have a college degree, but usually these are finished college and they want an experience outside the United States. So they want a work experience outside. They come and work. Many of them actually go into rural areas that they work in. They don't all stay in Kampala, the city. And they might teach, they might work with agricultural programs. They work with different sets of communities. But they're also ambassadors of the United States to places where people might never have seen an American, and they help bring that friendliness, the American spirit that we've always known when we're growing up, to little corners of the world. So this is something that when you finish college as a scout, you can maybe consider even while you're in college to be. You can be posted anywhere, not just in Africa. They're everywhere in the world, even as close here as South America, if you don't want to go so far from home. Also, you may be an ambassador or a diplomat abroad who's representing the president. So if you're an ambassador, then you're the representative of the president of the United States. And you meet with presidents in other countries, or you meet with ministers, and you help with different, maybe it's trade, maybe it's education, maybe it is, health. So there are different programs that ambassadors do wherever they are. You can also work with the United Nations, because it's I think there are 136 member states. There might be more right now, but it is the biggest gathering or belonging of countries from around the world. So you may work with them, with the different agencies. The UN has different agencies. There are one for refugees, the one I work with. There's one for children. It's called the UNICEF. I worked on a project with them as well. There's one for the UNDP, the one for development, UN Development Program. The World Health Organization actually is, so there are so many, but there's one for trade. There are different for environment, for humanitarian action. There are so many for peacekeeping. So there's so many options, really many options where you can serve. But you may also one day be the president's representative to the United Nations. So that's an option. There are also international organizations, and some of them come from Europe, some come from Africa or for the United States, but for the US one, there's so many do development work, they do humanitarian work, they do charitable work. Some are into trade, so they're trading with different countries. And those are all options that you can be exposed to. A charitable work, you think of the Scout itself, it's a charitable organization, and there are Boy Scouts associations from around the world. There's the YMCA. We have in Uganda the YWCA, which is the one for women. So there are several charitable organizations too. You can also study abroad. So even before you end up working with any of these organizations, at any point, some schools actually, even at high school level, students have a chance to go on exchange trips to study abroad. But when you're in college, there are always many opportunities that you should definitely take take advantage of, to learn about the world, learn the world beyond the 50 states, so plus Washington, D.C. Some people belong to church, to religious organizations, and I say church because for the U.S. it's the biggest mission, but I know there are other religions as well that don't subscribe to the church. So they're church missions too. There are many missions. I have friends of mine who belong to the Church of the Latter-day Saints, and her husband went on a mission to Brazil. I saw some in Uganda too. They are Quakers, they are Mormons too, they are Baptists, they're any other religion. They are on a mission, doing not just preaching, but they might be involved in distributing food. They might be involved in promoting education. So they are bettering people's lives, but you learn through the process because you're also exposed to another culture, another country, and you're also, exposed to realizing that actually, regardless of what the challenges you might see, people survive. And the last one is the International Scout Jamboree. I thought, if you ever have a chance, why not attend that? If it's in a different place. We have Jambo here in our council and neighborhood, but there's an international one still in different countries. So that's it. I think I have for you today. I hope it's not a lot.
Thank you.
But
it's not a lot, but now we have a lot of questions for you.
Okay, that's good. I like questions.
Yeah, we have some questions from the audience, and actually the first one. So the International Scout Jamboree, which was just in Virginia last year? No, yes, last year. Did you get an opportunity to go?
No. Okay. No, I did not. I was working at ESU.
Okay. Are there scouts in Uganda? Do you have scouts in Uganda?
Yes, and we have scouts in Uganda. I was trying to, the website is just not very good. I think it's because of their, because of what you call their network, the network, it wasn't loading at all. So I was trying to load it and to show it to you. Yeah, they're scouts in Uganda. It's been, actually growing up, I knew the scout movement. And one of the reasons why I really wanted my son to join the scout, because I remember the song, Scout be prepared is our motto. They used to sing that when I was a little kid, and I remember the scouts would show up for national activities. If it's cleaning, if it is promoting the environment, they're different. Like, there was so much involved in the social life. The difference here as well, what I found out with the scout in Uganda, it's the president of Uganda is actually the patron, because he had a very serious interest in scout movement as an avenue for educating young people and promoting education. So you don't have it at there are small groupings in the West, Central, North, and South, but also there's a big grouping with the patron as the president, and then scout leaders. They have different, so the names are not the same as here, where you maybe have we have, I think the lion here is the small kids now who are in kindergarten. In Uganda, the lion is the last stage before you get to Boy Scout, because in our culture, the lion, and obviously from, as you know, Mufasa, the lion is the king of the jungle, right? The lion is the king, so then that shows that level of respect and high level.
That's pretty good.
They decided not to use the wolf because one of the groups in Buganda, the region where I'm from, so the culture I'm from is called Baganda. We have different groups called clans. So one of the clans is from the wolf clan, and they felt offended if they used their wolf as a scout. So they didn't want any conflict with them.
That's great. What would you like kids to know about Uganda? Like, what are you most proud of that is maybe not widely known?
So hospitality is a big part, definitely. Ugandans are very hospitable people, very, very hospitable. We are I feel like we're very happy people. Now, if somebody from abroad conducted a survey and asked people, you will hear people talk a lot of politics. And they might say, oh, we have it right here. But Ugandans celebrate. That's one thing that's really, they will celebrate regardless of the circumstances. They are always celebrating. It's a community element. You will you will not lack food if you went to someone's house. Like, so that openness to eat, openness to share, openness to help each other, you know. I mean, it's most likely that you go to visit people go to visit other people at their workplaces. I'm serious. And then they take them out for lunch. Like, who goes to someone? It's unheard of in America to just go visit someone at their work, but then you go and then they take you out for lunch. So it's a very hospitable country. People are very hospitable. And people are very happy. They love celebrating and they love entertaining visitors. You know, what else? I mean, I think the resilience, and I come from it from a different perspective too. It's just the resilience after so many years of wars and different change of governments and wars. People are still resilient, and it was able to recover. When I had just come to the US, people used to always ask me about Idi Amin, and you have to know that I never met. I was not born when Idi Amin was president, but that's the first thing people knew about Idi Amin, because Idi Amin was a president known for expelling a large group of Indians out of Uganda for reasons people understand differently. So people are named, so he was known as, I think there were names, but maybe he was a cannibal, maybe. I don't know how far true it is. So that was it. When you come into a different place, it's hard for you to take just the negatives about the place you come from, which you didn't even know. So the idea of just letting people know something different about yourself, you know, just and telling them just how people are still happy regardless of the circumstances they might find themselves in, and they're optimistic. I think there's that optimism. Yeah.
How has coming from Uganda and all your life experiences influenced your approach to teaching?
My mother was an elementary school teacher for her entire career, and she was a principal as well. So I remember very much when I was little, she used to read to me. I remember this one incident that I love to share with many people is we were being the soldiers came to our house. Back in the day they used to come and rob you. So would come. So we were sitting outside, and my mom was reading a book to me, and they just came into our yard and entered our house. So my mom was trying to run away, and they said, "No, don't run, because there are more coming. I mean, if you run, you might end up getting shot." Anyway, interestingly, that they just enter the house to help themselves out to anything that we owned. And my mom is sitting there teaching. She just kept reading the book to me like nothing happened. So the idea of love for books is a big element for me. I mean, the idea of education, like in Uganda, and it's different here because everybody really aspires to have an education. It's almost considered, you can't say you're not going to school. You know, wow. You're really going to. When we were little, I tell my son this, when we were little, we had nursery rhymes that tell us, when I finish school, I have to go to Makerere University. You knew you had to go to college. That's it. There was no in between there. So there is nothing about why can't you go to school. Kids, everybody, regardless of whether they have books or they have shoes, they want to go to school. So the approach to education is a big part for me. And working in rural Pennsylvania, sometimes, believe it or not, sometimes I actually see challenges in access to education or in learning that I've seen growing up in Uganda or that are in Uganda, you know, in terms of family structures, in terms of income, in terms of dynamics within the community. You know, they might still be with different, you're comparing America to Uganda, not necessarily, but you're comparing circumstances within, you know, and for me to be able to help kids who might also look like my son, but also who have circumstances that I'm familiar with, is a big joy to me.
Would you ever want to move back to Uganda?
Oh, very much. Because the reason, and this is one of the reasons why I went to school, is I did this teacher aid, because I think some people say, why do you have a graduate degree and then you do a bachelor's degree? For one, in Pennsylvania, if you really want to teach early childhood, you need to have a bachelor's degree. They don't have so that's why. And I wanted to do pre-K to 4 because I love kids. I believe the foundation of education is very important. And kids have that innocence, but they're also very intelligent. and to be able to expose them to people whom they might not see every day in their social circles was an opportunity and a privilege that I embraced. But the other reason why I went back is I figured I want to do some of the things they do here in Uganda. So I went to set up my own school, because my mom had an early childhood center, but she trains teachers who train kids. I want to be able to bring that element, I mean, people, obviously there are different challenges with the US education system, but there are still very many things you take from it that are exciting and important. I mean, and I don't know so many states. I know Pennsylvania, but the program I went to was very rigorous as well. Like, it is a really good program. You spend over 100 hours in the classroom while you're studying. You do observe, you co-teach, you teach alone. So I want to start my own school in Uganda, and I would love to, anytime anybody wants a partnership with me, we can go.
Well, actually, we have a teacher in the audience who wants to know if you've ever heard of the Vygotsky method of teaching.
Yes, yeah, I am a big one on that. I'm a big fan of Vygotsky. Yes, absolutely. I'm a constructivist. Tell the teacher I'm such a big constructivist
Oh, she can hear you.
Yeah, because I strongly believe in the innate abilities of kids. I mean, yeah, we can talk more. I think I learned a lot from being a parent myself, but teaching allowed me to be a better parent.
That's great. Yeah, she's excited. She'd love to talk to you sometime.
Absolutely, yeah. I would love to hear about teaching actually in Massachusetts, because I've been thinking about moving to Massachusetts just to be closer to, if I'm going to stay here for a long while, just to be closer to a Ugandan community. So,
and then, so you could also root for the Red Sox too.
Yeah, once again.
Yeah, once again.
I live in Northeast Pennsylvania. There's so many New Yorkers, so you can imagine what is here. Like, so yeah, I do my part still.
We have another member of the audience here who says Boston needs teachers like you. So I think you have to move up now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank
well,
you very much.
We're up with the time. Is there any, I'm trying to think, like, tips of wisdom that you would give any of the people in the audience or any young people growing up on, we talked about like how to be more involved in being a better citizen, but any other life tips that you might have that you'd like to pass on?
Travel the world. Travel the world if you have a chance to. Travel the world, meet people. I mean, go out in your community. Like I told you, there are Ugandans there too. You can learn from many people from around you too. But traveling the world is a very big eye opener. You learn a lot. Because I've been in classes with kids. Like some of my colleagues, because when I was doing my teacher aid program, I was older than so many of the students. And I was telling them, take a study abroad, take a study. I was going to go to Finland, but my special ed program didn't allow it in a way. I got accepted, and then my professor said, no, I think you might not be able to transfer these credits. So I was like, all right, I'll stay. But I was telling so many of the students, go and study abroad, because it's easiest when you're in college and you learn a lot. You don't know what the future is going to look like for you. I mean, that might be the beginning of your other life. And some of them, I don't want to leave my mom. I don't know. Like, I started traveling when I was before college. Like, I was already traveling around at least East Africa and stuff. So I'm not sure. I was never so stuck on my mom. And I don't know why. Maybe it's that when you grow up, because our education system, we grow up learning about the world. I had heard about Manhattan, I had about St. Lawrence Sea, where are the Great Lakes of the so you learn and you see these pictures of places you want to explore these places. You want to see what they look like. So you're so excited to just have a chance to, obviously I know not everybody has a chance to travel, but I'm very sure most Ugandans given a chance, they would travel. So I would say travel, and serve the community. You get a lot from service too. You don't just build your career, but you get a lot. most of my career was built of volunteering. I volunteered a lot when I was in high school, in college, and then I started doing any job. I mean, back in Uganda before it was even possible to find a job. Like college students, the way it works in Uganda is the government would pay for the best 4,000 students, the whole country. So there's a national exam, and there's the best 4,000, the government pays for them if you're one of them. So you have a full scholarship. So people don't really think they should work when they're in college. They just go to school. So if you do, but by the time I finished college, I had over 3 job offers because I had already built myself up as somebody who would be trusted. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Doreen. You've done it all, and your spirit is so inspiring.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad it finally worked out.
I know, me too. Oh, third time's the charm. Yeah, thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again.
Thank you. Yes.
Take care.
Bye. You
Bye.
too.